Hey everybody, K947 aka Wolfkeen here, and welcome to an edition of A Wolf's Word, where you get the word straight from the wolf's mouth. Now today on A Wolf's Word, I'm going to be talking about a game I've beat recently and I'm doing a special series on. A game which is pretty hard, it's difficult, and it's probably one of the toughest games I've played in a long time. I am talking about Dark Souls. Now, what can I say about Dark Souls? As you all know, I did a previous review of the game Demon Souls. If you want to see that review, head to my Wolf's Word and you'll be able to see what did I give Demon Souls. But I said Demon Souls was difficult, but it had a lot of good things in the game, which is why I liked it. Does Dark Souls keep up the trend? Sort of. But first, let's get into the important parts. The story. The story is a little hard to grasp. Apparently there's been this curse. There was like these 4 Lord Souls that were given to 4 special beings in the world, in the land of Lordran. These 4 beings somehow, in a way, basically caused this curse. Like, where hollows, basically undead people, hollows are, don't die. It's like these hollows are infesting the whole world because they're being branded with the dark sign, which is supposed to be this, almost like I say, it's a curse, which basically makes hollows keep appearing at will. Like, people just keep turning into hollows, and it's starting to infest the world, especially in the land of Lordran. So, to try to lessen the amount of hollows there are in the world, they decide to take all the hollows to a fortress, where they will, of course, keep them there, like lock them up, almost like Alcatraz. Almost like how Alcatraz is. There's no escape and there's no leaving, and basically hollows just spend the rest of their lives there until the end of time because they can't die. You play as one such hollow where you get to create your character and basically you escape the undead asylum and you go on a pilgrimage to the land of Lordran. Now, here's my problem. You don't learn much about the story until later in the game. The very beginning part is after you make it out of undead asylum, you find out you're going on a pilgrimage in the land of Lordran. Then you speak to this guy who is a crestfallen warrior by the first area you start in, who gives you a tip on what to do. Basically, there's these 2 bells you need to ring, and once you ring these 2 bells, according to him, something will happen. Unfortunately, that's as far as the story got until you get later in the game. Later on in the game, you meet this weird creature that tells you that you're supposed to be succeeding Lord Gwyn, who was supposed to be the ruler of Lordran, if I'm not mistaken. So your job is to succeed Lord Gwyn and finally end the curse of the undead. I mean, I do like the pacing of the story a little bit, but at the same time, it could get a little ridiculous. Because I was about 2 or 3 bosses into the game and I was thinking, what am I doing? What's the story? What am I supposed to be doing? Where do I go? All I knew is I had to go to 2 locations, but getting those locations were the hard parts, considering you had to fight a lot of bosses to get to each location. So, the story ain't bad, but it ain't great. It could be better. I mean, it's paced a little bit brokenly, if you ask me. But at the same time, that's not terrible. But the thing is, in Demon Souls, they told you exactly what you were supposed to be doing. I mean, in the beginning of Demon Souls, after you beat your first demon, you were told by the Monumental that your job is to try to defeat all these demons so you can take away power from the old one and finally defeat the old one. In this one, you just find out later, you find out that first you're on a pilgrimage, then you find out to ring these bells, and then finally you learn you're supposed to succeed Lord Gwyn by beating the 4 lords of Lordran. So, the story could be broken up a little bit, but it's a little broken. Alright, let's get into character. The character customization and the, there's not as much classes as there was in Demon Souls. There's a little bit less. And they tried to put a little bit more complexity, I guess is the word, to the customization, because now there's these new things. You could choose a gift. Basically, a gift is an item that you get at the very beginning of the game. But unfortunately, all the gifts in the game are pretty much useless, except for maybe a select 3. One of them you do get later in the game. The item is needed to exchange it for something else later in the game. And then finally you get the Master's Key, which allows you to open all simple locks. When you think about it in hindsight, the Master's Key is the winner. What they should have done is like made some of these gifts, like the Divine Blessing, they should have made that at least like rechargeable or something like that. Because when I went and got Divine Blessing in my first playthrough, I found out those things disappear when you use them. So I ended up never having them again. Why put items that are supposed to be gifts, and you could use them almost instantaneously and they'll be gone forever, when the Master Key, the Tiny Being Ring, the Pendant can be with you all game? I guess that's just me. Alright, so what else? Character customization wise, like I said, I think there's only like a few classes. Warrior, Soldier, you know, you got your yada yada yada. They put a new one called the Deprived, which is supposed to be this, think Conan, but without a sword. Like that. No clothes, plank shield, club. That's it. And all of his stats are even. I have no clue who in the right mind would pick the Deprived, but if you did, good luck. There is some new stuff into the game, but I'll explain that in the combat. The character customization is a little bit more improved. Instead of just East, West, North, and South characters, now you got like Western Farmer or Southern, you know, this and that, and you can change them around in any way you want. I don't think there's a lot of hairstyles unlike Demon Souls, so it does take a fracture there. You can now mess with your body types. You can be like this big, pudgy, fat guy, or this really skinny guy, or a guy with a big-ass head, or a guy with a small-ass head. It's all up to you depending on how you want to customize your character. So they do have some customizations. Not a lot of customization, but some customizations. Like, you don't get to choose weapons and armor. They choose it for you, depending on what class you pick. But otherwise, once you start leveling up, you can level up your character in any way you want. You can level them up in any way you want. You can wear whatever equipment you want as long as you got the stats. So, the character customization has a lot of options, especially when you find different types of armor. Like in my primary file, I'm wearing the Mask of the Father and hard leather armor. The Mask of the Father increases my carrying capacity. Sure, it's weak, but hey, I need that in a way. Got a tower shield, a two-handed Black Knight sword. So there is a lot of customization in the game, and there's plenty of new armor in the game. So there'll be plenty of chances for customization and different options if you need it, like lightning resistant armor, fire resistant armor, stuff like that. But anyways, I digress. Let's get into combat. There are some new weapons in the combat, but I am going to say this, I don't like how some of them handle. Some of the weapons handle a little bit clunky. Like the Morning Star, it's just like smack, 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 smack. I mean, in Demon Souls, you can just go like over and over again. In this game, it's just smack. And if you miss, your character actually loses his balance. I get how that's realistic in some way, but not a lot of people are going to be using that kind of weapon. Especially most of the maces and axes don't really behave normally. The spear behaves okay, like it's just a thrust weapon. Halberds, when you try to stab, if you miss, your character will lose balance, which is okay. And they got a multitude of new weapons. Like, they have some new inboundments. How they had, like, now they've got, instead of crushing, they've got raw. They got fire, of course. They've got chaos now. They've got lightning. They've got crystal. They've got all these different types of upgrades to weapons. And you're allowed to upgrade this weapon in any way you want. So, the weapon customization is definitely a little improved, and there's a lot more room for changing things. But here we're talking about the combat. I think most of the weapons do behave a little clunky, but a couple of them do have some cool little things. Like, some weapons have weapon-specific heavy attacks. Like, the Black Knight sword will actually lunge back and then do a stab, and then do like that animation that the Black Knights do. Even the Knights from Demon Souls, that same animation where they go. I can't do it correctly, but you get the point. Then there's other weapons. There's special weapons you could get from enemies if they drop it, which are pretty rare. I've never seen too many of them, and stuff like that. But let's say the combat. I'm going around in circles, so I'll just talk about something new. Combat does have some new abilities. You can now do a jump attack. You can now do like a jump attack. Like if you fall off a cliff, you can actually stab your sword while going down, actually killing someone like that. Then you have a jump attack where your character will actually jump into the air like a lunge and jump at them with their sword. This could cause some serious damage. Of course, the kick is still around. They left that in there, but that's about it. There wasn't too many new moves in Demon Souls. They do have some new weapons, like some new bows, crossbows, magic, and stuff like that. Let's get into something. There is a new magical ability called Pyromancy, which, if you could tell, pyro means fire. So, you can have like these fire spells in your hand, and each of them do something different. You can throw fireballs, you can make yourself like this steel tank, but you move slower. You can make your body just sweat like crazy, so you take less fire damage. You can cause like, like punch the ground and cause like fire to explode from the air. Cause, different types of abilities. Cast poison. The only issue with Pyromancy, yes, you don't need any magical abilities, so I can feel it's a little unbalanced. But at the same time, the problem with Pyromancy is that you need a straight line shot. Unlike magic, Pyromancy does not lock onto an opponent. Like, as soon as you throw it, doesn't just follow them like magic does. It's where they last was is where it's going to fire. So you need like a direct line of sight and a perfect shot to get it right. There are new magic spells in this game, and all of them are homing, so the magic's pretty good, but there's not a lot of options for it. Especially for me, I don't use magic. I stick to Pyromancy. There's not really too many new weapons styles or anything like that. It's all the same: sword, shield, dual wield. There are a couple of new weapons, but I haven't gotten a chance to check them out yet. But I do say the combat's improved compared to Demon Souls. It does feel a little bit fresh. So it does take some points in combat. But let's get into the important part, the gameplay. Well, I'm going to be very honest here. This game is hard. This game is very, very difficult. There's no other word I could say but holy crap. This game takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time and effort in you. I beat my game in about 40 hours, and this was me going from start to finish. Near the end, I had my friends helping me, so of course it was easier for me, but I still chose to fight most of the bosses by myself. So, gameplay is vastly difficult. It's very difficult. Like, there are these new things. You can get poison, which was of course in the other game. You can get toxic now, which is poison but worse. You can get cursed, which insta-kills you, and you lose half your health. Like, your health will be at half of what it was, and the only way to get cured is with a Purging Stone, I think, and I think someone in Orlando can heal you. There are a couple of benefits to being cursed, but then there are a couple of negative things to being cursed. Then there's bleed damage. Instead of bleed damage being like, within time, instead it just takes away a whole chunk. So if you do like bleed damage, it'll take away like 300 health from an opponent. Then, that's about it. There's not really much other resistances now. They took away a lot of the spells and faith spells that they had in Demon Souls. Like, in Demon Souls, I had Second Chance, which allowed me to get back half my health when I die. I had Warding, I think it was, where I would vastly increase my physical defenses. They don't have those type of spells, unfortunately. At least not without negatives, which I like how they try to balance it. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that are unbalanced, which I'll get into in a few minutes. So gameplay-wise, you're going to have a hard time playing this game, but it's definitely a game worth playing. So, if you have the time and effort, definitely the gameplay will be for you. If you don't have the time and effort, good idea for you to move on, because plenty of people have raged quit this game, including someone I watched named Darkside Phil, aka DSP Gaming. He made it as far as 65 parts to Blighttown and then quit, which I don't blame him. This game is pretty hard. Even when you learn what you're supposed to be doing, every single time you go enter a new area, the game just changes. It's almost like you enter this area, okay, I know what to do here. New area, I don't know what to do here. Dead. Thousands of times before you finally figure out what you're supposed to be doing. It's like you have to learn each area separately before you can move on and actually do something. So the gameplay, I definitely have to say, is balls to the wall hard, and it can really test you. But it's one of those rewarding experiences, like when you beat bosses. So let's get into that. The bosses now. I think there are only about 17, 18 bosses in this game, but they're all different. You know what? Let me not lie. They're not all different. 3 of the bosses they fight are pretty much the same, but other than that, the bosses are pretty unique in their fighting style, and most of them are pretty hard to fight. Because they all have a certain way they fight, they all have a certain amount of attacks they fight, and yada yada yada. But it's nothing too strenuous. Like, I don't think this game is that hard where, like, you want to keep playing, like, you'll be playing the game, like, throw your controller and, you know, like that. But it's actually a rewarding game. Like, some people do throw controllers, but this game is rewarding. Like, after you beat a boss, you sometimes like, yes! Yes! I did it! Next boss. But then at the same time, you're like, wait a minute, if that boss was hard, what's next? So it really pushes you the way this game is difficult. Now, the bosses, like I said, are unique, and they are difficult. Most of them are harder than others, which is why it's good to summon a player. That's the next part I'm going to be talking about, the multiplayer. I think that's all I need to say. The multiplayer is so freaking broken, I can't believe it. There's this glitch where people can actually have every single item in the whole game. Every soul 99, every item 99, everything in the whole game. Basically fully upgraded and everything. And most players get this. I don't know how. I refuse to go for that glitch, but players get this and then they have everything and they could just jump level 8s and 9s all day, just pissing them off. And so people decide to quit the game. All I can say is playing online during the early stages of this game is pretty difficult, but once you actually get the hang of the game, like later on, that you can defend yourself, then the multiplayer is a little bit more bearable and it's actually a little bit of fun. But early in the game, it's a little redundant because most of the players have like electrical swords +5 that can kill you in one shot, but later in the game, they can't kill you in one shot. But the problem is that Dark Souls has a bad lag. Dark Souls is probably one of the worst connectivity has one of the worst connectivities I've played in a while. My problem is that Dark Souls has like a really bad connectivity. 1 minute a guy could be standing in front of you, next minute he's right behind you and just backstab you. Like that. That could get annoying. And the fact that they made items and spells and stuff like that that's good for PvP, like one of the combinations that someone uses Tranquil Walk of Peace, which will immobilize a player so they can't dodge, they can't run, they can't do nothing. And then if they have the Hornet's Ring and they backstab someone, that critical damage is doubled. So instead of doing like 800, they do like 1600, kill the person instantly. And that's annoying as hell. I hate the multiplayer during the early stages, and I hate it now. But usually if you can find players around your level, the multiplayer is actually pretty satisfying, and it can be some fun. Especially when you summon players to help you. What they decided to do is that you can actually summon NPC phantoms to help you. Like, you'll find these regular guys. You'll find these, like, regular NPCs around the game, and you can actually summon them to help you with boss fights. Hell, you'll even get invaded by a couple of NPC phantoms, which are kind of cool. So this way, even if you're playing offline, it's like, don't care if you're offline, you're still going to get invaded, and you'll have some help to help you out. How's that? I like that, because this way people don't want to play online and get invaded. No choice. You're going to get invaded when you're live offline. And you can still summon people offline, so it's good. Multiplayer-wise, I think it takes a shinner, but it's not terrible. I don't hate it. I just think it takes a shinner. So, I think I talked about all I could say about the Dark Souls. So what do I think of Dark Souls? It's a good game. It's definitely fun, but it's really hard. It's like one for those hardcore gamers. I don't think a casual gamer will have a chance at this, only if like they devote the time and effort. I mean, plenty of people have quit the game. I mean, we have DSP Gaming who has quit the game. We have, I forgot this guy, but he's from Achievement Hunter, you know, Rooster Teeth. He quit, but I don't know if that was scripted or not. So I really can't say on that one. So plenty of people have quit this game while others have pushed themselves to beat this game and caused them to quit. One thing I neglected to mention is that it's not just random worlds you're going in like Demon Souls. It's one whole land. You could check out a lot of locations in that land. So it's not open-ended like Skyrim. Skyrim was the most open-ended game I played, but it's definitely more open-ended than how Demon Souls was. Demon Souls felt like you had only one path. Dark Souls, you feel like you have multiple ways to get through a situation. I mean, seriously, there are multiple entrances to some locations. Some easier than others, while others harder to find. So, there are multiple locations to check out. Some are optional, others are not. So there's a lot to see in Dark Souls. So, what do I think of Dark Souls? Definitely a good installment. Not as good as Demon Souls, however. Demon Souls still holds it as one of my favorite games next to Skyrim. But Dark Souls is definitely one of those games that will definitely keep you grasped. It says prepare to die. Yeah, you will die a lot in this game. But if you can get past its difficulty curve and actually, find some friends to play this with, this is a really fun game. This game is fun. Even by yourself, it's still challenging, it's still difficult, but once you get the hang of it, you'll actually feel yourself become invested into the game, especially when you invest a lot of time and effort in this game. Game's pretty good. Not as good as Demon Souls, of course. I'm going to give it an 8. Dark Souls is definitely a good game for many reasons. The difficulty curve and the broken up multiplayer could be a little bit of an issue, and the story being a little broken is a fault as well. But it's not too bad that it lowers it down below an 8. 8 is a great score for Dark Souls. Pick this game up if you want to change of pace. Like if you're tired of all the easy games these days, definitely pick up Dark Souls for a change of pace. Its difficulty will be one of the hardest games you ever played since the NES games like Ninja Gaiden or Castlevania. But it's definitely a fun experience, and once you beat the game, you get to play it all over again, but the game is tougher, so it's never going to lose its charm in some way. So, I think that's all I need to say about Dark Souls. Sorry, I need to check my mouse. Alright, we're good. Definitely an 8 out of 10. Dark Souls is definitely a game I recommend getting. I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and I will see you next time. This has been A Wolf's Word, where you hear the word straight from the wolf's mouth. See ya!